Kia ora, good evening. The hearing concluded, the decision was made and the Invercargill City Council became the new owner of Southland Outdoor Stadium. Councillors expressed their views around the table last night, voting 5-4 in favour of taking ownership of Rugby Park before the final decision was made by Mayor Tim Shadbolt. Voting against the motion were councillors Graham Lewis, Rebecca Arminston, Karen Arnold and Ian Pottinger. Concerns raised from the councillors mainly focused on a lack of options available for the fate of the stadium. There were just 3 options available to choose from, which included the council having no involvement in the stadium or a one-off payment from council to settle the stadium's debt.
My main concern was around the fact that the options we'd been given were developed with the best interests of the Stadium Trust, Rugby Southland and the Community Trust in mind, and not the ratepayers. Information about the situation had been around for, been talked about for a year or more. So everyone knew that the decision was coming or that there was, circumstances coming. But I think that we should have been able to have more options or options that were more thinking outside the square, perhaps. I didn't actually, say that I was against the council owning Rugby Park. I was just against owning it under the circumstances of option 2. And that was mostly around the paying the community trust debt and that sort of thing. Sure, rugby is part of New Zealand's heritage and the history of this country. It's been a popular sport in the past. Some would say it's still just as popular today as it's ever been. But I think that sometimes you've got to look at the bigger picture of, we've got a lot of challenges coming in the future to do with ageing population, decline in workforce numbers, big infrastructure renewals and those kinds of things. And those things need to be taken into account as well.
So ideally, what would you have had happen?
Ideally, I guess I would have liked to have seen us go back to the drawing board with coming up with different ideas on how the ownership can be structured and ideas that take into account the ratepayers' needs.
Invercargill City Councillors last night rejected a request from the Invercargill Licensing Trust to have alcohol licensing fees reduced. The ILT requested ICC reduce their fee category from high to medium. However, this was rejected by councillors at the meeting. ILT argued their excellent performance in operating licensed premises and cooperation with enforcement agencies warranted the reduction. However, were not keen to see the reduction applied to all licensed operators in the city. ICC has the discretion to reduce licensing fees, and recently the Mataura Licensing Trust was successful in obtaining a fee level reduction from Gore District Council. If the reduction in fees had been granted, the ILT would have saved approximately $10,000 a year. New cancer treatment health targets show Southern patients are getting their treatment faster. The target is by July 2016. Patients referred with a high suspicion of cancer need to be seen within 2 weeks of referral, and that 85% of patients should receive their first cancer treatment within 62 days of being referred with a high suspicion of cancer. Southern DHB's performance is already at 75% against the target of 85%, which is set to increase to 90% by June 2017. Assisting to reach the target is the development of a new electronic program which identifies and tracks patients through what can be a complicated pathway of care. Created by Southern DHB staff, the program is designed to identify patient progress and to pick up any delays that may occur. It feeds on hundreds of plants, crowds houses, leaves a distinctive smell and may be coming to your front door. The brown mimirated stink bug is an aggressive agricultural pest native to Asia, which has recently invaded other countries. The Ministry for Primary Industries says quarantine officers have found the bugs on 13 occasions, most of which were in the past 6 months. There's a high risk of the bug getting into New Zealand in the next year, and the effects may be devastating.
We can only go on by what's happened in other countries, particularly in the United States, and it appears to be quite a severe impact there because it attacks a lot of crops and plants, and also it gets into built-up areas and lives in people's and on people's homes, and so it is generally speaking a pretty severe insect pest.
And what kind of scale are we talking in terms of industry threat?
Well, I can't give you an exact figure on that, but I imagine it would go across the horticulture and the agricultural industries at least, and that could be quite a significant impact, particularly if it behaves like the fruit fly and lays eggs in in valuable plants and destroys valuable plants, yeah. It seems to have a very wide choice of foods. It seems to attack, I think in the States they talk about it, it affects over 300 sort of human important food species.
How is it getting into New Zealand?
Well, we understand that there's been intercepts at the border. It's coming in, I think, in cargo, in mailed items, and also I think in people's luggage coming into New Zealand. So yeah, that sort of information that we're hearing. Yeah.
Are they a risk to human health at all?
As far as I know, there's no direct risk to human health, no, but they certainly have a nuisance value and they're very difficult to control. They move in quite large numbers and they stick to your walls and they probably get into your ceilings and go do things like that, and I guess it's another pest we just don't need.
What should people look for and what should they do if they find one?
Well, it's a very distinctive looking insect and you'd have to see a photograph of it, and I'm sure those photographs are going to get out, and certainly if you look it up on the internet you'll find it. But if you see something you think might be a brown marmorated stink bug, then certainly call Ministry of Primary Industries on their 0800 number and let them know.
Meanwhile, survey results from Auckland University show a lack of knowledge amongst school students about unwanted pests and plants. Last year, 171 Year 9 students were surveyed and found 31% could not name an unwanted animal, while a third couldn't name an unwanted plant. Students also lack knowledge on what effect an unwanted plant or pest could have on the environment. Coming up after the break, an increase in the minimum wage and one multi-talented musician entertains Invercargill crowds. Welcome back. The minimum wage and the starting out and training wages are set to increase from the 1st of April.
The Workplace Relations and Safety Minister today announced the adult minimum wage will increase by 50 cents an hour to $14.75. The starting out and training hourly minimum wages will increase by 40 cents to $11.80 an hour, set at 80% of the adult minimum wage. The increase is said to directly benefit over 115,000 workers and increase wages throughout the economy by $60 million per year. But the New Zealand Council of Trade Unions has slammed the announcement, saying the pay-setting mechanism shows a disrespect for the families of this country. CTU said the increase barely covers the loss of the 2 10-minute tea breaks that will occur across New Zealand workplaces in March. They identified a living wage to be $19.25 and said the announcement will see thousands of families facing another year of struggles. But the Workplace Relations and Safety Minister said a higher increase would constrain employment growth by up to 5,000 jobs per year.
The volume of alcoholic beverages for public consumption has decreased despite a steady increase in the demand for craft beers.
The total volume of alcoholic beverage available for consumption in New Zealand fell 9.4 million litres last year. The fall follows an 8.9 million litre rise in 2013. According to Statistics New Zealand, the 2% decrease was due to fall in the volume of beer, down 6.5 million litres, and spirit-based drinks down 4.3 million. The fall in beer was due to mid-strength beers, with both low and high-strength beers up on 2013. The volume of high-strength beer had almost doubled since 2009, reflecting the growing demand for craft beers. Low-strength beer was 2/3 higher than 2013 due to the industry gearing up for the new blood alcohol limits introduced last year.
Invercargill is being treated to a free international performance tonight by Harpist Edward Klassen as part of his gruelling national tour. During the concert, the multi-talented musician and linguist shares his fascinating background with audiences.
I grew up in Paraguay, South America. I grew up in a little mud house about 520 kilometers away from the nearest city. Never seen a pavement road, never seen electricity. One day some fancy missionaries came from Canada and told us young people that we had a gift from God, that we should use it before we die. And I still remember 1967, my dad bought us a radio and heard for the first time radio in our lives. And then later, my dad bought us a harp. I was about 15 years old when my parents bought us an old Paraguayan folk harp, and I learned to play it. Never had I dreamt that one day I would travel the world and share my story, how I grew up in a mud house 2,000 kilometers south of the Amazon River.
When you first heard radio and you first heard the noise on the radio and the music, was that an inspiration for you, although you hadn't been introduced to an instrument at that stage?
That's right. I had never heard an instrument. It was amazing. Listening to that radio, I can still see myself with my younger brothers, my mom and dad, sitting beside this miracle box, staring at it, thinking, who in the world is sitting in there and they are speaking our language and playing music? Will I ever meet people like that who can play music like that? And guess what? I have met them and I have played it too.
The harp itself is a handmade harp. It's the loudest harp in the world. Is it something that you learned specifically from a teacher, or is it an instrument that you picked up and taught yourself?
Yes, I learned it by myself for the first 5 years of my life, and then later I went to the Paraguayan Music Academy. There I studied music. Piano was my major, classic guitar, upright bass, and accordion, and the harp was my hobby instrument. In a capital city, I studied for 5.5 years how to play the native music, and my teacher was one of the best Paraguayan harpists. He taught me how to play Paraguayan music.
So you can play multi-instruments, but you also speak several languages as well.
Yes, I grew up with 2 native languages. At home we spoke Plattdeutsch, in German in school and church, and then I went to the Paraguayan Music Academy in Spanish. 1986, I moved to Canada and had to learn the worst language in the world, English. I'm still working on that.
Well, you're in New Zealand and you're enjoying the country. Your photography hobby is really paying off for you in this beautiful country.
It is amazing. I have seen more than 29 countries, traveled there, played there. When we talk about New Zealand, I always say to people, if you ever want to see paradise on earth, come to New Zealand. Wherever you turn the camera, it's a perfect shot.
It's a wonder you have any time to take photos. You are working extremely hard on this tour.
Yeah, we have 31 concerts in 1 month, and that's quite busy. And then while we travel, I always ask, hey, stop here, stop there. I will take a few shots here and there. The first time we came through here, I did 10,000 pictures. Second time through, 8,000. And now the third time through, I don't know, maybe another 8,000.
And tonight's concert here, what kind of music will you be performing?
I will play mostly hymns from the church or the old songs and crank them up a little bit, kind of like a flavor of country and bluegrass background style. And also I will do a few Paraguayan pieces, but also I will share my story and details, how I grew up in the jungle, how I made it to the modern stage, praising God with a smile on my face.
And that free concert kicks off tonight at 7:30 at the Invercargill Central Baptist Church in Devron Street, and he's off to Te Anau to perform shortly too. Right, let's take a look at the weather.
Your forecast on Q is brought to you by Environment Southland. Environment Southland wants to know what you think about our recreational water areas. Where do you go? What do you do? And your thoughts about the water quality. You could win one of 5 $100 vouchers simply by completing their survey. The survey will help them find out whether the water is being tested in the right places and how the service can be improved. Complete the survey online by going to Environment Southland's website or pick up a hard copy from Environment Southland, the Southland District Council, Gore District Council, Invercargill City Council or Public Health South.
And taking a look at our weather now for Wednesday the 25th of February. A good 10 degrees difference between the South Island and the North Island today. Auckland on 24, Wellington 23, down to 13 degrees in Queenstown, Gore and Invercargill, as well as Stewart Island. Tomorrow's forecast, it should be mainly fine with light winds. Overnight lows of 9 and 10 for most places. Invercargill can expect a high, beg your pardon. Riverton can expect a high of 19 tomorrow, as can Wyndham. Invercargill a high of 20 along with Gore. And Te Anau looking for 22, Queenstown 23 degrees the high tomorrow. In the marine forecast for Fovo, variable 10 knots, northeast 15 knots, southwest swell of 3 metres with a rough sea easing. And for Pusica, southeast 25 knots to southeast 15 knots, southwest swell of 3 metres, and it'll be rough sea in the north. Looking ahead to the long range forecast on Friday, cloud increasing with scattered rain developing in the afternoon, northwest breezes changing to southerly. Occasional showers on Saturday, although southerlies dying out, becoming fine with northerlies developing on Sunday. Sports team is along next, but from us, your news team, it's good night.